the New York Knicks pulled off a major upset. It was not that long ago that national and local New York sports media pundits treated the New York Knicks like a punching bag, highlighting the great level of dysfunction that was clear and obvious. For quite some time, they gave no reason for fans to trust them, and no reason to support a team owner who has made some decisions that many despised. The San Antonio Spurs pulled off a major upset in their own right by defeating the Oklahoma City Thunder, the defending champions. So, the basketball elite used the time-honored media principle of transference to determine the Spurs would win. The Spurs would have won if they could have held a lead besides Game 3. They had double-digit leads in every game, and gave those leads up in every game but one. The Knicks got hot when it mattered most. That is usually a good recipe for success in any sport. Congratulations to them. But we condemn their fans for the horrible behaviors throughout the series. The egging of Wemby was despicable, as well as the attacks on Spurs fans should not be overlooked. New Yorkers are a mix of some of the most upstanding people in America and some of the lowest forms of life in the world. It is only fair to hold their fans accountable when they make mistakes. I will admit, the World Cup is more interesting than the Olympics. I enjoy soccer a great deal. I have discussed before how I support Real Madrid and Manchester City. But, I was discussing with a friend recently and I stated the Olympics should be more interesting because there are more sports available and the overall medal tracker makes it something to follow from opening to closing ceremonies. Now, I have always been a fan of the World Cup. Love to see the clashes between national teams with historic success in the event that rarely play each other. But, I think this year, being in the nation that is really hosting it, I think it is even more special. I recently lost a family member who back in the last American-hosted World Cup gave me a soccer ball that celebrated the 1994 World Cup. I recall watching the final with Brazil defeating Italy in a penalty shootout. Fast forward to now, I am watching hoping that America will shock the world and win the biggest prize in soccer. But if they do not, maybe Brazil can capture its 6th trophy, but they need to play better than they did in their opening match. The Americans played well and dominated, but Brazil clearly played with nerves given the weight that they always enter the event with. The beautiful style of soccer they play with was not really evident against Morocco, who were close many times to pulling off the upset. Morocco is not a bad team, but Brazil is the better team. Games like this are what makes the World Cup so exciting. There are no consolation prizes like there are in the Olympics. Your national team either meets expectations or they have to deal with questions for the next 4 years. There are no distractions from the outcome. Unless you are in the final game and hold the trophy, nothing else matters. The event is a great one to host during our celebration of our 250 years of existence. Hopefully the world will see why America is so special and will be inspired to embrace freedom, democracy, and opportunity in their societies. What a fight night. What a great birthday for our president, securing an end to the Iran conflict and then hosted an amazing historic event at the White House. I am a huge UFC fan, but was a bit skeptical about the event at the White House. I thought it was a great idea, but not sure how well it actually would play out, especially with all the opinions out there. I was wrong. It was a great event to watch and it more than lived up to the hype. There is no doubt that it will be a memorable night and event in the history of the UFC and mixed martial arts overall, and any combat sport. Every fight was a finish for the first time in history. And what a main event. A major upset with Justin Gaethje winning despite being a major underdog to an undefeated champion. One who was so arrogant to believe he would win in the first round. But, on this special night, on this special American celebration, the American spirit was embodied by Justin to win the undisputed title finally. Football players need to leave the hits on the field. There have been a considerable number of bad headlines for the National Football League with prominent members of teams that are expected to be in contention facing criminal charges over violence against women. Now, I am a big proponent of connecting an employer with the private misdeeds of employees. Many companies have employees that make similar mistakes. But I think it may be important for teams to reinforce the need for players to understand that they live and operate in a different world than the rest of society, and that they need to behave as such to maintain that privilege. It seems like some believe their notoriety and fame affords them the right to shirk responsibility for their actions. There are certain actions that you can be forgiven for or may be downplayed, but domestic violence really is never one that anyone will treat like a speeding ticket, nor should they ever. Giving 20-year-olds generational money when they may lack maturity to handle what comes with it can be a challenge. From a position of self-preservation, their choices now will at the very least expose them to loss of income or transfer of their hard-earned wealth because of a moment of anger. There are plenty of compatibility issues when you are young and you believe you may be in love and it turns out that you are not. But you have to handle situations better and ensure that you do not harm yourself or others, especially when there are young children that now have to deal with the visions that will shape how they view their parents going forward. Violence in all its forms does not have a place in society. But the sad and unfortunate reality is that people make mistakes, especially those of low moral standing or people that feel like they are immune to consequence. Money can buy a lot of things, but it has shown that it struggles to overcome domestic violence accusations.